All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about something super practical, a real life checklist for spotting narcissistic behaviors. And look, this isn't about getting bogged down in textbook definitions. This is all about making sense of those really confusing, really difficult patterns that you might be dealing with in a relationship. How about this one? Ever feel like you're walking on eggshells? Man, does that hit home for a lot of people. You know that feeling, right? That constant knot in your stomach, never quite sure what's going to set the other person off? If that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely in the right place. It's a classic sign of the stuff we're about to get into. So, what's the goal here? The whole point of this explainer is to help you move away from just reacting emotionally, feeling hurt, confused, angry all the time, and move towards a real intellectual understanding of what's going on. Because when you can see the patterns clearly, that's where the power is. And that's what lets you start making healthier choices for you. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We've got 5 main sections. We'll kick things off with the public versus private self, then dive into the superiority mindset. After that, we'll look at their world of control and what happens with confrontation and consequences. And finally, we'll bring it all home and show you how to put it all together. All right, section 1, the public versus the private self, or as the subtitle says, the mask they wear. This is all about that huge, sometimes shocking, difference between who they pretend to be in public and who they actually are when no one else is looking. And here it is, side by side. The public self, oh, they're charming, successful, the person everybody just loves. But then you get to the private self, behind closed doors, and it's a completely different story. Suddenly they're difficult, controlling, critical, and just so demanding. This huge gap between the two is honestly one of the biggest red flags you can find. So how do they keep this mask on? Well, a few key things start to show up in that private self. For one, they're more than willing to lie, or let's say creatively edit the facts, just to win. And self-reflection, looking at their own fears or flaws, nope, not happening. Then there's loyalty. To them, it's not a two-way street. It's totally functional. You're useful until you're not. And then you're gone. Okay, on to section 2, the superiority mindset. And this really builds on the last point because that need to have a perfect public image, it's all fueled by this deep-seated belief that they are just better. It's all about being the best, being on top, no matter what. So, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, they live in these fantasies of having incredible power, success, and everyone admiring them. They're often drawn to ideas of domination, smacking people down. And God forbid someone else gets the spotlight. They have to steal that affirmation right back. They'll also put people into little boxes or categories, mostly so they can dismiss them and avoid ever having to learn from anyone they see as beneath them. So think about it. If you believe you're superior, what's the main way you keep that top spot? Control. That brings us to section 3, a world of control. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of how the rules are just not the same for everyone. It's all about the tactics they use to make sure they're always in charge. Okay, this is a big one. A really simple formula to keep in your back pocket. Unsolicited advice equals criticism. You know that constant flow of helpful suggestions about how you should do things, even when you never asked? Yeah, that's usually not about helping you. It's a sneaky way to criticize you, to keep you feeling like you're not good enough and that they, of course, know best. And sometimes that control gets a lot less subtle. Take a phrase like this: you better think twice about what you're going to do. Do you understand? Let's be real, that's not a question. It's a thinly veiled threat. They're not looking for you to understand, they're demanding you obey. It's a pure power play, meant to scare you into line. Which brings us to maybe the most powerful control tool of all, the double standard. It's so simple, yet so infuriating. There's one set of rules for them and a totally separate, way stricter set of rules for you. So they can be angry and scream, but you have to stay calm. They can lie when it works for them, but you have to be 100% truthful. It's a rigged game, designed from the start to make sure they always have the advantage. So what happens when you finally push back? When you try to challenge this ridiculous, unfair system? That's what section 4 is all about: confrontation and consequences. This is what happens when you finally say, hey, that's not okay. And I bet this little cycle is going to look incredibly familiar to some of you. It starts with step 1. You try to raise an issue or set a boundary. Step 2, they hit back with this completely irrational anger.
this "how dare you" attitude. And finally, step 3. Not only will they refuse to admit they did anything wrong, they'll twist it all around until somehow it's all your fault. It's a maddening loop designed to make sure nothing ever gets resolved.
It's not just about rage either. Their reactions to conflict are all tied up in how they handle emotions, which is not well. They'll dismiss your feelings because, let's face it, emotions are messy and they can't control them. They see emotional vulnerability as just awkward, or worse, a sign of weakness. And their whole concept of love gets twisted. It's not about accepting you for who you are, it's about you conforming to what they want you to be.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So for our final section, section 5, we're going to put it all together. We're going to take this whole checklist of behaviors and turn it into something really clear and practical that you can actually use. We're moving from a list to clarity. And that brings us to a really helpful tool from the source material, something they call the toxicity score. It's basically a simple way to tally up all the behaviors we've been talking about to give you a clearer picture of just how severe and unhealthy the situation might be.
So here's the first key number to remember, 10 plus. If you find yourself ticking off 10 or more of these 20 traits for one person, the source considers that a major warning sign. We're not talking about someone having a bad day here. This is a consistent, troubling pattern of behavior. Then we get to the next level, 15 plus. And this is where it gets really serious. If you're counting 15 or more of these traits, the source straight up describes that relationship as very, very toxic. We're at a point where a genuinely healthy give-and-take relationship is pretty much off the table. So let's just put that in simple terms. See 10 or more traits? That's your warning sign. Time to start paying very close attention. See 15 or more? We're now in highly toxic territory. It's a really straightforward way to put a number on what you've probably been feeling for a long time. And that really brings us back to the most important point. Remember, knowledge is power. The whole idea of this checklist isn't about slapping a label on someone or trying to win a fight. It's about giving you clarity. Because understanding these patterns, that's the first real step you can take to get your power back and start looking out for yourself. So that leaves us with one final, crucial question. Let's say you decide right now that you are on Team Healthy. What are you going to do with this new knowledge? How are you going to use this clarity to guard your own peace of mind and build the healthy, happy life that you absolutely deserve? Thinking about that, that's the whole point. Thanks for joining me.